Very good. Hey, if you happen to be new with us, my name is Josh, and I'm one of the pastors here, and looking forward to just spending some time talking and sharing with you this morning. You know, I was out of the pocket last weekend, and so anytime I get back and get a chance to preach, I'm always a little fired up. So I want to encourage you to kind of match emotion with emotion, all right? So feel free to join me on this journey. Before I dive into our topic and all that, I just want to kind of look backwards a little bit over this past week, just because some cool things happened. We had a vision night here at the church on Tuesday night, and we do those a couple times a year, and they're open for anyone to come to, and you might not have known about it, and if you don't, it means either you didn't see it on Instagram or you do not have push notifications on your Rock app. So let me just take this opportunity and encourage you, download the Rock app to your phone and allow push notifications. That's how we primarily communicate things at church, is either through social media or through our app. So if you haven't done that, do that. But we had a great time at the Vision Night. What it was about is, well, one, we made fun of some of Matt's issues that he's having. If anybody was here for that, it was kind of funny. I can't tell you about it because it got a microphone and it might be bad. But we made fun of Matt Brown a little bit, and that's always fun to do. But then we celebrated some people. We laughed hard. We had a great time. We looked back at 2017, but then we also talked just about some cool things coming up in 2018. And, I just want to real quickly tell you about a couple of them because they're really important, and we want to make sure everybody's on the same page. For one, we started talking about Easter, all right? And I don't know if you realize this, but Easter is in 5 weeks, all right? If you're at Horry County School, that means you have spring break in 5 weeks, so great things coming. And I need this right now. I mean, doesn't it feel great that spring is here? You know what I mean? 80 degrees, trees flowering, all that. I mean, I just endured the longest winter of my South Carolinian life, right? You with me? Like those 4 weeks of January were awful, all right? And so the fact that it's 70 and 80 again and it's coastal weather, I just love it, all right? So I'm saying all that to say this, that Easter is coming. And there's two things I want to share with you about Easter. One is we're doing a theme called This Is For Everyone. And what we're going to do is we're going to walk through the book of Romans, which is in the Bible, and we're going to pull out some key verses. But if you look at Romans, all through it, you see this verbiage like blank is for everyone, like good news is for everyone, character is for everyone, faith is for everyone, change is for everyone. And we're going to really dive into each one of those topics each week. On Easter, we're going to hit that topic of change is for everyone, and we're going to do it through Romans 6, and we're going to talk about baptism. So on that weekend, we're going to have a baptism weekend. Now, if you're new with us, let me make sure I explain that. One, we do baptisms all the time here at The Rock. But on that weekend specifically, we're making just a strong, big push to call it a baptism weekend. And if you've ever been thinking about getting baptized, if you've ever been like, man, I should do that, man, that's a great weekend to take that step. It's a great weekend on a couple levels. One, there'll be a bunch of other people doing it with you, all right? So you won't feel like you're alone. We'll be doing it at every service. It's also great because you have friends and family that would probably come to see your baptism. And it's Easter, so they might already be thinking like, well, maybe I should go to church. So you can use that weekend as a great way to get them to come to church with you, all right? Others of you just need to use that weekend knowing it's going to be a great weekend for us as a church. And there's been somebody you've been praying for. So take advantage of that weekend. We're going to have tons of services. I'm not going to go all into them because next week you'll see publicity about all that. But just know it's a great weekend that is coming up. All right. Another thing we talked about at Vision Night is how we're doing some restructuring of our staff and also of our ministry teams and small group teams. And basically it's all around this concept of connect, discover, respond. If you've been coming very long, you hear that language from me. And we're basically looking at it from this angle that we want everybody, every man, woman, and child to get connected to Christ and then to respond and to live on mission for him. So we're doing everything we can as a church. What I talked about that night, which I want to hit here, is one aspect of that is trying to get as many people to go through Starting Point as possible, all right? Starting Point is an incredible thing that we offer here every 2 weeks. So like right now, it is happening. It always happens at 11 o'clock on Sunday mornings every other week. And I don't know how many, but my guess would be there's 20 to 25 people down in Starting Point right now. And what they're figuring out is what are their next steps in their walk with Christ, and what are their next steps when it comes to living on mission for him. And I want to say this, if you haven't been to Starting Point, please put it on your calendar. Realize in 2 weeks we'll have it again. Make sure you go, because it's a critical next step. And then the last thing I really talked about there was this, our coastal campus, which we just launched 4 months ago, and how that is playing into a campus in Vegas. And let me explain that. The coastal campus, it meets on Sunday nights. It's a live venue, so live preaching, live band. It's very similar to this, but it happens inside of a coffee bar. And it's only 4 months old, and it's going great. God is doing amazing things. Just a couple weeks ago, we celebrated the first baptism from our coastal campus. Somebody came here on Sunday morning and got baptized who normally goes to coastal on Sunday nights. That's worth celebrating, right? That's good stuff, all right? But in addition to that, God just keeps moving and people keep going, yeah, I want to take that step. I've heard that there's a couple of our people who attend our coastal campus who are getting baptized this morning, all right? And that's awesome, and I celebrate what they're doing. I know in a couple weeks that somebody else from our coastal campus is saying, yeah, I want to take that step. And what we're doing with them is they wanted to do it on Sunday night. So we have a portable baptistry. So we're just taking it to the coastal campus on that Sunday night. She sent out invites to her friends or her family, and she's going to get baptized that night. And it's just great to see how God is moving there. And we planted that church with this vision in mind, that there are tons of families that live in the Carolina Forest area. And there are tons of college students that go to Coastal and Tech, and we want to do everything we can to connect them to Christ and to help them live on mission. So we said, we got to do this. I can remember the elders meeting. It was back at the end of 2016, and we sat in my office, which is just in the back corner of the room here. And we sat and we started praying, and we just started going, we know we need to do something in the coastal area to reach the families and the college students. And we didn't know what. We didn't know how we were going to do it. We just know we needed to do it. And we looked at some money that we had set aside in the budget, or not in the budget, but in our bank account, that we said, let's earmark that for planting a church in Coastal. And we earmarked $250,000. We said, it's probably going to take about that much money to plant a church, so let's just earmark it and let's do it. While we were doing that, at the exact same time, we were looking at a budget for 2017 that was larger than any other budget that we had tried to operate on. All right. So as an eldership, we're staring at a budget that was bigger than anything we have ever done before as a church. And we were saying, and let's spend between $200,000 and $250,000 to go plant a church. Now, there wasn't any fear in the room. What there was faith and trust that God would show up. And here's the crazy thing. Last year, 2017, when we attacked that budget that we had never had before, all right, we actually not only, and when I say we, I mean you as a church through the power of God, that we not only hit our budget need when it came to offerings last year, we exceeded it. Well, yeah. You want to guess how much we exceeded the budget by? The same amount of money we spent to plant Coastal. You know what I'm saying? So God said, I'll take care of your budget needs, and that money you had sitting in reserve to plant a church, I'm going to take care of that as well. All right. So guess what? We have the money sitting there to now go plant Las Vegas. All right. And we're going to plant a campus in Vegas. We're looking at facilities right now to do the same thing we did in Coastal, plant a C3 coffee bar in downtown Vegas. All right. That sounds cool. And it will be. And then out of it, use it as a footprint to launch a church. And I'm excited. but I'm also a little nervous because guess what we're doing in 2018? Attempting to operate on a budget that we've never operated on before. Because the way God is growing the church, it's like, all right, this is what it's going to take. So to do that, we're going to have to, as a church, we're going to have to meet that budget need. And we have this money over here to plant Vegas. But my guess is that God's going to say, see what I did in 2017? Guess what? I can do far more than you can ever ask or imagine. And I believe he's going to show up and he's going to take care of us where maybe we're sitting here next year and we still have that money that we were planning on planting a church with because we did it through our operating budget and we go, okay, then where are we going to plant next? Then where are we going next to plant another church? Because we want to help every man, woman, and child across this world come to know who Christ is and live on mission for him. But I'll be honest, when that happens, it takes a little bit of faith, doesn't it? And it takes some trust. And trust can be scary. Let me illustrate it this way. Tucker, I know you're here. Do me a favor, come up on stage. Tucker has no clue that I was going to do this to him this morning, all right? Be careful. I fell on these steps getting up here this morning, all right? It was very embarrassing. I'm falling down right as the lights were coming on. It's like, hi, church, how y'all doing? So, hey, give it up for Tucker, all right? So, Tucker has been coming to the Rock forever. He serves faithfully in Kids Rock. Great young man. And I just want to ask, do you trust me?
Yes.
You're in trouble. All right, so here's what I need you to do. I want you to stand right there. Do you know what a trust fall is?
Yeah.
All right, yeah, y'all know what a trust fall is? It's very simple. You stick your arms out, and in a second, I'm going to say fall back. And when I do, make sure your feet stay where they're at, and just trust me and fall back, and I'll catch you. All right, go ahead. All right, very good. That wasn't hard at all, was it? Piece of cake. All right, you still trust me? All right, turn around. Did you notice he backed up and he got closer to me? Everybody saw you do that, Tucker. You stay there. I'm here. All right, I'm back here. Go ahead. Good job. All right, that's good. But how about one more time? Tucker, how tall are you?
Not tall enough.
Story of my life right here. All right, Tucker, I got you, all right? Hey, don't be backing up. All right, you got to fall backwards. Ready? Go. Don't be looking at that screen. I saw you looking at that screen. All right, Tucker, you can trust me. Fall back. All right, there we go. Go. Very good. All right, that's good. How about one more time?
I think I'm good.
You think you're good? You're like, nah, I trust enough. No, one more time. Stand right there. All right, Tucker, can you do me a favor? Can you turn around and look at me? Arms up. Fall back. Yeah, that one's a little bit harder, isn't it?
Yeah.
But don't you trust me?
Yeah.
But you don't trust me that much.
Not that much. Not
That's
that
good.
side either.
I want you to catch, that's really what God's asking. That God is saying, if you truly trust me, don't just fall back into my arms, although that's important, all right? That's really important to trust him that way, to trust him fully and to fall into his arms this way. But what about when God says, hey, here's what I want you to do. I want you to turn around and look at me and now do what I tell you to do. Because that's really more of what God is telling us to do. God doesn't say, take your eyes off me and then listen to what I'm saying. God says, turn and face me. Keep your eyes on me. And when you do that, then trust fully what I'm telling you to do. And in that moment, I get it. I'd been just like Tucker going, you know. But that's really honestly how we do it with God sometimes, isn't it? It's like, okay, God, I'll trust you when we're this close. But I don't know when we're that far apart. And I really don't know if you're asking me to do something that just sounds absurd. But don't rely on your own mind and your own thoughts. Trust in him for his understanding is far greater than ours. Let me show you this verse. This is what I mean about trusting fully. It says this, trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not depend on your own understanding. Some of you know this verse, and maybe you have it in your house. Maybe in your house it says it this way, trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding. That too many times in life we think that I've got to have it figured out. And if I have it figured out, well, then I can trust in the Lord. Guys, I can tell you right now as an eldership, all right? And I don't know if you like to hear this term or not, but when we were sitting back thinking about planting Coastal, we looked at each other and we said, we don't know how we're gonna do it, but we're just gonna trust God. And when we started saying, let's plant a church in Vegas, we didn't know how we were gonna do it. We had to say, let's trust in God. Let's not lean on our own understanding, but let's trust him fully. And that's what I want us just to dig into this morning. You know, we've been in this series called Back in Black. And with this series, it's been a series that is primarily about your financial health, all right? And week 1, we talked about this concept of working hard at your job, working hard at budgeting, working hard at honoring the Lord. Last week, we talked about deleting debt or dumping debt and finding freedom. And if you'll notice that it's the theme of the series is about your finances, but you could probably say it applies in many areas of my life. And that is definitely true this morning. That when we start talking about this idea of trusting God fully, I want you to trust him fully with your finances, but I want you to see how this plays into every other area of your life. Don't depend on yourself, depend on him and trust him as he says. Well, how do I do that? Well, then I've got to seek him. If I want to trust him, what I have to do is I have to seek him. Let me read this very next verse, all right? The first verse was from Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5. This is chapter 3, verse 6. It says this, seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take. Seek his will in all you do. And focus on that all aspect, all right? Because I think a lot of us go, well, I seek him in some things, but maybe I don't seek him in all things. Like think about church for a second. I know many of us were like, yeah, I want to seek God. I want to come to church. And I'm going to give him that section or that hour, maybe I could say it that way, of my life, all right? And that's really, you know, what it is. If you think about coming to this hour of worship, that you're coming in and we run for just barely a few minutes over an hour each week is what our service length is. And what happens is you come in and I understand and I see how it works is that it's like, I'm coming to seek God and I love it. I love the hour that we get to spend together in here. I love seeing people just get excited about worship and taking communion and turning their lives over to Christ. I love the fellowship, the community that happens in the hallways and in the lobbies, what's going on in our Kids Rock area. That hour is awesome. But too many times I know this is the only hour that we're seeking God. And what we end up doing is it's almost like we compartmentalize God. And we think that God gets a compartment of my life, but not all of my life. Like God gets this 1 hour, but then I have 167 other hours that I get to do with what I want. I want you to think about this for a second. From today until next Sunday, if you are alive next Sunday, you will have lived 168 hours. And how much are you giving to God? And you might start doing the math in your head. And if you start doing the math in your head, then I would say that we've already messed up because the math in our head should be 168. It's not, oh, I do an hour here and I do 15 minutes of devotion time in the morning and I serve at this time. No. That's not what I'm asking you to do. I'm saying don't compartmentalize God in anything. Rather, give him 168 hours. Seek him in all things you do. I mean, imagine that if you did that. And it would not look like this. Let me explain it from the negative side. It wouldn't mean, therefore, you're going into life saying, okay, well, I have God then and my marriage. I have God and my career. I have God and my schooling. I have God and my relationships, and God and my hobbies and athletics. No, what I'm saying is, if you're to really do this, if we were to really do this and seek him, then it means God in. I have God in my marriage. I have God in my career. I have God in my schooling. I have God in my friendships or relationships. I have God in my finances. That if I really said, God, I want you in everything, then when that would happen, he would show us, therefore, how to live. So let's not compartmentalize God, but let's actually seek him. And when you seek him, he'll show you the path to take. He'll show you this is exactly what you need to do in your marriage. This is exactly what you need to do in your career. This is exactly what you need to do in your relationships. This is exactly what you need to do in your finances. But if that happens, if you say, okay, God, I'm going to seek you because I trust you, and he'll show you the path. But when he shows you the path, then what you have to do is follow him. Look at this next verse. It says this: don't be impressed with your own wisdom. Instead, fear the Lord and turn away from evil. Now let's just stop right there. What that verse is really getting at is this idea of being willing to ask somebody else for help. Being able to look at God saying, I need your wisdom. And I know sometimes, especially as men, that can be difficult because we don't want to ask anybody else for help, right? Guys, you remember in the days when you'd be driving down the road before GPS? Maybe you and your wife were heading someplace, and as you're driving, she's like, are we lost? Oh, no, we're not lost. I know right where I'm going. Where you know you have no clue, but you're also not going to pull over and ask anybody, right? No, I'm just going. But now with GPS, she's like, I think Siri's telling you lost, you know? Worse than that is when your wife goes and buys like a piece of furniture from IKEA. I can tell by the laughter in the room that there's not many men that have had their wives buy furniture from IKEA. Guys in the room who've had to put together IKEA furniture, raise your hand. Okay, so you know exactly what I'm talking about right now. Like you might have got a good bargain buying that piece of furniture, but as the one who had to put that furniture together, that's a nightmare. Because I'm looking down at that bookshelf going, well, how's this go together? And then if I go over and actually try to read the instructions, I have no clue what Switzerland's trying to tell me, right? And I'm just like, and you'll be like, you need help? No, I don't need no help. I got this. Throwing away extra pieces in the back. Because I want to rely on my own wisdom. But God says, if you want to follow me, don't be impressed with your own wisdom. Instead, fear the Lord. Fear the Lord. And let me explain that, because I know that phrase confuses a lot of people. They're like, what does fear the Lord really mean? And I preached a whole message over it a couple years ago here at The Rock. But in short, I said fear the Lord is an equation, meaning X plus Y equals Z. X is the idea of respect or revere. That I need to respect God. I need to revere him. I need to understand who he is. I need to understand that he holds all the wisdom. If I understand who God is. So that's X. And Y is this concept of obedience. That okay, now that I know who he is and what he's saying and the wisdom that he has, then I need to obey what he has to say to me. So if I take respect and obedience, reverence and obedience and put it together, then I have the fear of the Lord. So if I'll take the respect, if I'll recognize who God is and then obey what he says, I am fearing him. And that's how you follow him. And understand, all through the Bible, he's constantly telling us who he is and how to follow him. He's constantly giving wisdom in all areas of our life. That if you'll just spend some time reading through it, you'll see wisdom after wisdom after wisdom on a number of areas. You want to know how you should treat other people? He tells us, now simply do what it says. You want to find wisdom on how to deal with your finances? He tells us, and then do what he says. You want to understand how to live a pure life. You want to understand what it means to walk in your singleness and to live on mission for God. He tells you how to do it, and then all you have to do is do what it says. I'm not saying it's easy, but what it will do is it'll bring health and strength. I see that in the next part of the verse. Look at it. It says this: then you will have healing for your body and strength for your bones. If I will look to God, I will recognize who he is and see what he says and then do it, then he says it'll bring healing and strength. And guys, last time I checked, those are things that all of us want. We want healing in our marriages, or we want strength in our marriages. We want healing in our life and strength in our life. We want strength when it comes to our finances. I mean, think about that just in the financial world. That don't you want to have a healthy and strong bank account? Don't you want a healthy and strong credit score? Don't you want a healthy and strong retirement plan? Don't you want to have a healthy and strong insurance package so that you can take care of your family? When it comes to debt, you want to be healthy and strong. Well, we can get that way if we'll fear God and obey him and then simply do what he says. We'll hear what he has to say and then obey it and do it. And when that happens, well, we do the very next part of the verse. We honor him. When we fear him and do what he says, we honor him. And this is what it says in the very next part of the verse. It says this: honor the Lord with your wealth and the best part of everything you produce. Look at that just a little bit clearer. With the best part of everything. If I want to honor him, then I got to give him the best. And I don't think this is something that any of us have a hard time understanding. I want you to think about it for a second. What would it look like if you had some guests coming to your house? If you knew somebody was coming over, chances are you're probably gonna make sure the house is somewhat clean. You're probably gonna set up the bathroom with some nice towels hanging on the wall, right? Where you know if you live in that house that you're not allowed to use those towels, right? You know exactly what I'm talking about. You're like, no, I'll get in big trouble if I touch those towels. But the guests can use them all day long, right? When it comes time to eat, all right, and you've made the meal, you're not just gonna run in and start taking your food. You're gonna tell the guest, why don't you go first? Why don't you grab the food first? And you're gonna serve them. And then when they go sit down at the table, you're not gonna let the guest sit down on that rickety old chair that you know is just gonna fall apart sometime, right? You let the kids sit in that instead. Right? We all do it. We all do it. Because we want to honor the guest. You go to somebody's birthday party. You're not running into that birthday party saying, oh, hey, let me blow out the candles, all right? You're not going and saying, let me have the first piece of cake. No, you're honoring that person. You're giving them the best. And when it comes to God, then God should get the best of everything. And let's think about that just simply in the financial world, that he should get the best part of everything we produce, all right? And for us in this context, in America where we live, that means he gets the best of our finances. He gets the best of our paycheck. And guys, this is a lesson that I had to learn the hard way. I've shared this with church before, but just let me share it again, that there was a day in my life that I was not living out that verse. And my wife and I, we were struggling financially. It wasn't because of lack of income. We were both being compensated, being taken care of by the church I served and the school she worked for. The problem was I didn't honor the Lord. That I wasn't giving to the Lord the way I needed to. I wasn't budgeting the way I needed to. I wasn't saving the way I needed to. So we were struggling. And on top of that, I wasn't being honest with my wife because, she basically said, you take care of the finances. So I know she probably thought, well, we're giving to the Lord the way we should be. But I remember the day that I sat down and said, we're just not doing this financial thing right. And we've got to look to God's word and we've got to start figuring out how to do our finances. So we started digging into God's word. I started looking at some of the verses just like this and said, man, we've got to start got to start giving to God first. That I've got to honor God with the very first of our paycheck. And we made a decision on that day that's what we would do. And then we looked at it and said, okay, if that's what we're going to do, then how much do we give? Well, again, I looked back at God's word, and God's word is very clear all the way through the Bible, from the Old Testament to the New Testament, all the way through. It talks about percentage-based giving. And throughout the Bible, it talks about 10% all the time. So we looked at each other and we said, all right, we're going to start giving 10%. We're going to make it happen. And when we did that, I looked at that number and went, all right, we've been struggling to live. How are we going to do that? You know what I mean? So then it made us immediately go, all right, let's start honoring the Lord with a budget too then. And we put a budget in place, which meant if we started with God at the top and then we worked, there wasn't enough at the bottom. So we had to cut some things that didn't matter, you know what I mean? Some things that weren't that important in life, but we had to figure out a budget so we could do it. And when we started living that principle out, God started pouring in blessings. That all of a sudden, our financial health got a whole lot stronger. Why? Because God honors his word. And God says this, then he will fill your barns with grain and your vats will overflow with good wine. Other places of the Bible, it says that you could even test him in this and he will pour so much blessing on you that you can't contain it. The bottom line is you can't outgive God. And when you start living this principle out, then all of a sudden God shows up. But you know what it takes? Trust. It takes trust. For my wife and I, the way we do it is we do it through online giving. And in today's world, that's easy. All of us are used to online bill pay, all right? You know, if you have a car payment, you have a mortgage, anything like that, you're used to online bill pay. Well, the beauty of online giving, all right, is that it automates that obedience. That Krista and I, we looked at, we said, this is what we're going to give, and then we set it up, right? And we're both paid on salary, so it's pretty easy for us to understand. We know what the paycheck is every week. So we just set it up that way, and we let it be gone right off the top, all right? And here's the beauty of that. For me, I've automated my obedience. There's not very many areas in my life I can automate obedience. You know what I mean? Like, I wish I could automate obedience over my mouth, right? Like, that would be nice. Some of you are like, amen, yeah, elbowing somebody next to you, right? I wish I could automate obedience over my anger and my temperament, but I can't. But when it comes to my finances, I can. Maybe you're on a fluctuating income. That's the beauty of text to give. Because text to give, online giving, it's the exact same system. But what happens if you're paid hourly, maybe you get overtime, every week's a little bit different, it's a piece of cake. And I know what happens, all right? What happens is you get paid and it comes in and then you're like, well, when I get to church, I'll give. And man, between then and church, you've spent, and now it's like, oh, now it's gonna be a whole lot harder to give. Text to give is easy. You just text it in and it's done. And guys, I think about our church. I know I got a lot of young people in our church, all right? A lot of people from this generation. And guys, I know you get it. For those of you who are young adult, the college students, you get this idea of generosity, that you want to use your life and your funds to do something that matters. The promise that God gives us is that you can. And when you do, he shows up. And Chris and I, we've noticed it to this point now that we've seen God showing up in so many ways in our life that we've just sit down at the beginning of each year and we say, how can we give 1% more? All right, we know we're going to give it a minimum of 10%, but how can we just add 1 more % each year? And every time we do that, God continues to show up in a massive way. But it'll come down to this simple question. Do you trust him? Because to do that, I know what it takes is you're sitting there and you're like, God, I don't know if I can. And then when God says, yeah, turn around, let me tell you to do something even bigger than that. You're like, okay, that seems crazy. But that's when I can't depend on my own understanding. I can't lean on my own understanding. I have to trust the Lord with everything. And we're going to move into a time of response. And I want you to think about it from this angle. Let me ask you just two simple questions with this idea of trust. First, have you trusted him with your soul? Now, I know in a room this big with this many people and as many people as we have watching online or at C3, I know that there's some of you who haven't. And I want you to know you're in the perfect place right now. I'm so glad that you're here, that you're investigating who Christ is, that you're allowing yourself to sit in company with others who maybe have made that decision. But if you're here and you haven't trusted in him for salvation, then I want to say to you, that's your first step. That you need to trust him that way. Because you have a soul, and your soul is of extreme worth. And there are people that are praying for you like crazy for you to trust God with your soul. So if you're here this morning, I want to encourage you to trust him and to take that step and to cross over that line and say, okay, I'm going to do it. And you might sit there and go, well, how do I do it? It's actually fairly simple. It's a profound prayer, but it's a simple prayer. And it's you praying, you talking to God, who wants to be in relationship with you, who wants to communicate with you. You say a simple prayer saying this: God, I'm going to trust you because I need you. It's that. I'm going to trust you and I'm going to fall into your arms because I need you. And I promise you that God's going to catch you. He's going to wrap you with his grace. He's going to say, you are forgiven. And then he's going to send you out on mission. So if that's you this morning, I want to invite you just to say a simple prayer like that. But then I want you to add one other thing to your response, is I want you to go public with it. I want you to go over to the Connect Corner. And I want you to talk to somebody who's there. I'll be there. There'll be some other people there. Because we want to celebrate with you, but we also want to tell you about a few other ways that you need to respond. What repentance looks like, what baptism looks like. But it starts by you in faith saying, Jesus, I trust you with my soul. Do you trust him? For others of you, though, I have to ask a very pointed question. Because I know there's many of you in this room that you have trusted him with your soul. But you don't trust him with other things in your life. And I want you to think about how crazy that sounds. That you'll trust God with your soul, but you won't trust him with your money. You'll trust God for salvation, but you won't trust him with your finances. Don't we all understand that our soul is way more valuable than anything else in life? If you're willing to trust him with your soul, then trusting him with the other things should be easy. Because all the other things are things of this earth. So trust him with your soul. And if you trust him with your soul, then it should be simple. Trust him with your money. Trust him with your bank account. Trust him with the way that you give and the way that you're generous. And trust him with your marriage. And trust him with your schooling. And trust him with your career. Trust God with everything. Well, how do I do it? I follow him. Well, how do I know to follow him? I seek him. And when I seek him and do what he says by following him, that will honor him. And that will build up more and more trust. So I want to challenge you during this time that maybe your step is just to say, okay, God, I'm ready to trust you with everything. And maybe for you during this response time, you're just going to sit in your seat and you're just going to be like, I ain't even going to stand because I just got to mentally think about this. I got to spend some time kind of breaking this apart in my head and just giving it to God. For others of you, maybe you're going to come up and take communion. And here at our Conway campus, communion is at the front of the stage. And there's just a piece of bread and a cup of juice. And you can just come up and you can take that bread, take that juice anytime during these next two songs. And you can spend some time just thanking God for dying on the cross and then walking out this message saying, God, I'm going to trust you with this, whatever it is. Others of you, you're going to spend some time praying. Maybe somebody's going to get baptized this morning saying, I trust you. Here's my final challenge is while we respond, we have just about 13, maybe 14 minutes. Don't rush out. Don't go to your car. Don't go get the kids. Honor the Lord. Give him this time so that you can give him the rest of your time. Won't you stand with me and I'm going to pray. Jesus, I thank you for those in this room, for those online, for those at C3. And God, I pray right now during this time that we would truly respond to the things we've discovered. And we would look to honor you in everything by following you, by seeking you, because we trust you. In your name, amen. Let's spend some time responding.